Well, guys, the news just keeps coming. Now we have the official word. Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry coming out and saying that renovations to TIAA Bank Field may require the Jaguars to play elsewhere for 2 seasons in 2025 and 2026. I speculated that the Jaguars would be a team that really needs to get renovations. Their lease is coming up in 2030. Their stadium right now is simply not on an NFL satisfactory level. And this reminds me of exactly the same situation the Cleveland Browns are in. The Browns actually have a better stadium, I would say, than the Jaguars, but similar situation where it looks like the Browns might have to play somewhere for 2 years as their stadium gets built. Jacksonville possibly staying in the area. It says the second largest stadium in Jacksonville is at, I believe that's the University of North Florida, with a capacity of 12,000. And I looked up that stadium, and that stadium is just simply not fit to host NFL games. It's got a track around it. So I would say something would have to happen. Maybe the Jaguars go elsewhere outside of Jacksonville for 2 years. The Browns, on the other hand, just comparing, if the Browns get the $1 billion renovation, I would say they're probably going to play at the current site of the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio. But again, the big story here, the Jaguars possibly getting maybe upwards of $1 billion, maybe even more of a renovation to TIAA Bank Field. You can see some older photos of what a renovation might look like. I think they're going to have to completely rebuild this thing. Similar situation to the Browns, similar situation to the Carolina Panthers, and just the news on NFL stadiums. You've got the Browns planning a $1 billion rebuild. You've got the Panthers planning a $1.2 billion rebuild. You've got the Bills' $1.5 billion stadium opening in 2026. You've got the Titans' $2.1 billion stadium opening possibly in 2027. And you have, there is just so much news. The Commanders possibly looking at a $3 billion mega stadium. You've got the Bears, tearing up the Arlington Heights racetrack to be able to get their campus-type stadium that's probably going to be $3 billion in place. So many different stadiums possibly going up, but we will look at this Jaguars situation, saying the lease agreement between the team and the city expires in 2030, and this was always going to be a situation where the Jaguars are, looking at the NFL. The NFL is going to say, your lease is up in 2030. You need to have a new stadium by then. Bottom line. And I think the Jaguars, with their current team, they finally have a franchise quarterback. They're really looking to get a major renovation, maybe just an outright rebuild because their current stadium is so bad. The goal is to play those football games in Jacksonville. I know they care about that. So that is the question on if the stadium rebuild happens. It's going to be 2 years while it's under construction. Where are they actually going to play the games? And it says the question then becomes, where would the Jaguars play? Nothing locally has the capacity to house an NFL game. Would the NFL consider playing Jaguars games in Orlando, Gainesville, or Tallahassee? A recent example of a stadium overhaul was the Seahawks playing at the University of Washington's Husky Stadium in 2001-2002 while their field was under construction. So, yeah, I just don't see any way based on the available stadiums in the Jacksonville area. It's really just that stadium, that seats like 12,000 or whatever, that has the track around it. So they might have to go to Orlando. Would they play in the Swamp at Florida University? Would they play at Tallahassee? All of those. I would say maybe Tallahassee. Where FSU currently plays, they could swing something like that for 2 seasons and it would be okay, but they are going to have to figure something out if this does go through. The Jaguars have chosen global design firm HOK as the consultant on the project. A roof is something that 81% of the fans told the team they desperately want. So if this does include some type of roof, I guarantee you it'll be over $1 billion. It'll probably be like 1.3 or 1.4 billion. with a roof, the renovations are just getting ridiculous. They're literally renovating stadiums for $1 billion. That's the cost of, when you look at like other countries, cricket stadiums go up that are massive and they cost like a tenth of it. But that's just the NFL and the way, construction is. And when you don't have slave labor, it's going to cost more. But either way, guys, that is the current situation. All of these renderings are out of date. They are just kind of a reference for maybe what Jacksonville, this is what Jacksonville might do. Will Jacksonville maybe go with some type of weird overhang similar to what the Miami Dolphins did, or will it actually be retractable? I'm going to say it's probably going to be retractable in some form, and you're going to get a complete redesigned seating. They're going to rip all the seats out. It is going to be a virtual rebuild. They're going to tear it down, rip everything out, and just, completely reimagine the overall seating, probably add seating to it, and things like that. So this is desperately needed for the Jaguars, and the timeline on it could be in the mid-2020s, possibly 2025, 2026, very similar to the Cleveland Browns timeline, which is that exact same 2025, 2026. I mean, the NFL could get crazy. Could you imagine? I mean, at this point, you got to wonder, the Carolina Panthers doing a stadium rebuild, they might have to play somewhere else. The Jaguars might have to play somewhere else. The Browns might have to play somewhere else. Those are three teams right there. Obviously the Commanders can just stay at the crappy FedEx Field until their stadium gets built because they want to actually leave Landover. And then you also have Chicago, who is leaving the city for Arlington Heights. They can just play at Soldier Field until their new stadium gets built. But we could potentially have three teams playing at temporary stadiums, college stadiums, exhibition stadiums, whatever you want to call it, as their stadiums get rebuilt. It is a pretty crazy situation happening in the NFL right now. And then we also do have Bank of America naming rights on the Panthers Stadium are ending. So maybe the Carolina Panthers will get a new sponsor and their names will change. We're just waiting for maybe they don't want to do it, but you would think like Apple would want one of these. I mean, Apple Stadium, Apple Park, Apple Field, Amazon Park, Tesla Park. I mean, it seems like all the ultra big names, Google Park, something like that, they would jump in on this, but I don't know. We'll have to see who ends up. Normally, it's like an insurance firm or something like that. They buy it for like $17 million. Also, the Browns naming rights, there was something with First Energy to where I think they had like some fraud or something. They couldn't afford it. They had to fall out, and the Browns Stadium now is back to just Cleveland Browns Stadium. So that is the updated situation on the NFL. Again, Jacksonville, we'll have to see if we get renderings. We are expecting a roof. When it comes to Carolina, they're saying, the only thing I heard was maybe not a roof. They're saying, that's not one of the priorities right now, but it would be kind of shocking. You're talking about Charlotte, North Carolina. You put a roof on it, that's a great chance to attract a Final Four, a Super Bowl. Jacksonville at their current stadium, there's no way they're getting a Super Bowl. But if it does get a renovation, if it does get a roof in Jacksonville, Florida, that would be a very, nice spot for the NFL to go. I guess the NFL does go to Hard Rock for a Super Bowl, so I guess maybe they don't need a roof because it is Florida. But I would be a little bit concerned about like a rogue thunderstorm. I don't know, man. If I'm playing in the Super Bowl, you got to be concerned about the weather a little bit at least. I mean, weather is fine in general, but for a game like the Super Bowl, you really don't want that to be any type of determining factor. That's why it was so shocking when they actually went to MetLife. Actually, the real reason it was shocking they went to MetLife, because MetLife is just a terrible stadium. Why would you go to MetLife? Man, I'm just kidding, but no, I mean, MetLife is really not, it's really lackluster for a newer stadium. But either way, guys, that is the current NFL stadium situation. I would expect the Jaguars to expand the capacity of their stadium a little bit. The seating should be completely redesigned just because it looks like an average Big Ten team stadium. That's what I get, the vibes I get from from TIAA Bank Field. So I would say just completely redesign it and then maybe add an extra 5,000 seats to it overall, because it does feel like a small stadium. And the Jaguars are a team, they're going to try and lock up Trevor Lawrence. They do that. They've got a legit franchise top 10 quarterback for the next 10 years. And you can kind of build off of that and possibly, I mean, they already made the playoffs and had like a 27-point comeback at home. So they're definitely a team on the rise. I don't know if you guys saw, I mean, the Jaguars are just getting royally screwed. They've got 2 games in London. That's just ridiculous. You got literally no team wants to go to London. That's what that tells me. They cannot get any team to go to London. And I know the Jaguars signed some sort of agreement with them, like that they were going to play in London every year. But I didn't know they were playing there twice in a single season. I'm guessing one game will be home and one game will be technically on the road. But, like, dude, that is not, if I'm a Jaguars fan, like, no, I don't want 2 games starting at 9:30 a.m. Don't get me wrong, I like the London games, but I did see that, and that really surprised me. Also, now they're having these overseas games in London, and the 2 games, I think, in Germany are happening in November, so a lot later than we're normally used to, just kind of a scheduling quirk when it comes to the NFL. But we do have huge NFL stadium news, the next one being the Jaguars. So this is 3 potential rebuilds on the horizon. It's the Browns, it's the Panthers, it's the Jaguars. We've got the Bills, we've got the Titans. They're locked in, they're getting new stadiums. The Bills have already, I think they're breaking ground like very soon. It's opening in 2026. And then you have the Commanders and the Bears next up for the new stadiums, possibly in different cities for both of those teams. So guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.